There's a moment most men miss. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet shift, where a woman decides without saying a word whether you're forgettable or unforgettable. And the truth? It has nothing to do with looks, nothing to do with money, nothing to do with the lines you memorized and hoped would work. Because attraction doesn't begin where most men think it does. It begins in a place you can't fake, and most don't even know exists. That's why some men say very little, yet stay on her mind for days, while others say everything right, and still get ignored. In this video, you're going to understand exactly what creates that difference. You'll learn how to shift from being just another conversation to becoming a feeling she replays when you're gone. You'll discover the subtle psychological trigger that makes her lean in, the mistake that silently kills attraction, even when you think you're doing everything right, and the precise moment where a few simple words can change how she sees you completely, not by manipulating, not by chasing, but by communicating in a way that most men never reach. By the end of this, you won't be guessing what to say anymore. You'll know why it works, when to say it, and how to make it land with real impact. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. So stay with me, because the next part is where everything starts to shift. Before we dive in, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. There is a subtle difference most men never notice, a quiet shift that happens in seconds, yet determines everything that follows. It decides whether a woman will think about you later or forget you the moment you're gone. And because this shift is invisible, most men try to compensate with more effort, more words, more chasing. But the truth is far simpler and far deeper. It starts with presence. Not just being physically there, but being mentally and emotionally grounded. The way you look, the way you pause, the way you speak without rushing to fill silence. That alone already separates you. Because the human brain doesn't remember words the way you think it does. It remembers how those words felt. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology shows that emotional impressions form rapidly and tend to last longer than logical details. In simple terms, what she feels with you stays. What you say fades. And that is where the game changes. A man who talks a lot, but creates no emotional shift, leaves nothing behind. But a man who creates even a slight emotional contrast leaves an emotional imprint. That imprint is what lingers. That imprint is what gets replayed later. Now here's where most men go wrong. They try to be impressive. They try to say the right things, be extra polite, overly available, endlessly agreeable. But predictability kills emotional intensity. And without intensity, there is no memory. This is why curiosity matters more than approval. Approval satisfies. Curiosity lingers. And curiosity is born the moment your communication carries certainty. Not arrogance, not pressure, just clarity. When you say, "I want to see you again," calmly, without hesitation, without over-explaining, something shifts. You're no longer asking, you're expressing. And that expression signals certainty. The human mind is naturally drawn to certainty because it feels stable in a world full of hesitation. But here's the deeper layer. Certainty alone is not enough. Because if all she feels is your desire, it becomes one-dimensional. It feels like she's just another option, not someone specifically chosen. And this is where the second element transforms everything. Recognition. Recognition means you see something specific, not surface-level compliments, not generic attraction, something real, something personal. Instead of saying, "I want to see you again," you say, "I want to see you again. I like how easy it feels talking to you." Now the entire emotional tone changes. You're not just expressing desire, you're showing awareness, and humans are deeply wired to respond to being seen. Most people listen, but very few actually notice. When you bring recognition into your words, you separate yourself immediately. Because now the interaction isn't generic, it's personal, and that creates depth. Now let's bring this into a real scenario. One man says, "Hey, you're beautiful. We should hang out sometime." Another says, "There's something calm about you. I like that. I want to see you again." The difference is not just in the wording. It's in the presence behind it, the certainty within it, and the recognition attached to it. The first feels familiar. The second creates an emotional imprint. And here's something even deeper. Neuroscience research from Harvard suggests that emotionally charged interactions are encoded more strongly in memory than neutral ones. That means if your interaction creates even a slight emotional shift, it becomes more likely to replay in her mind later. Not because she's analyzing it logically, but because her brain is trying to process the feeling it created. This is why some men are remembered without trying, while others are forgotten despite doing everything right. It's not about volume. It's about impact. But impact requires alignment. Because words alone don't carry meaning. Energy does. You can say the exact same sentence, and if your tone, your posture, your eye contact don't match, the brain will trust what it feels over what it hears. Every time. So if you say, "I want to see you again," but your energy is uncertain, the message collapses. But when your internal state matches your words, something powerful happens. The message becomes real. It carries weight, and that weight is what creates attraction. Now, there's one more layer that turns all of this from theory into something that actually works: timing. Even the right words lose power if used at the wrong moment. These expressions are not meant to be repeated constantly. They are meant to be placed with intention, after a genuine interaction, during a moment of real eye contact, or at the end of a conversation, because endings tend to leave the strongest emotional trace. Instead of fading out with something neutral, you leave a closing that carries meaning, and that meaning is what stays. Because the brain holds on to the last emotional note of an interaction more than anything else. Over time, if every interaction with you feels slightly different, slightly more grounded, slightly more intentional, you become associated with a feeling of clarity, a feeling of being seen, a feeling of presence. And that is what makes someone think about you when you're not there. At the deepest level, human connection is not built on words. It is built on states. When your communication carries certainty, it creates stability. When it carries recognition, it creates value. When it carries presence, it creates authenticity. And when all of that comes together, it leaves an emotional imprint. That imprint is the difference between being another conversation and being the one she remembers later. Not because you tried harder, not because you said more, but because you made her feel something real. And once that happens, everything changes. You stop chasing attention. You start creating it. And the question that remains is simple. How often are you truly present in your interactions? And how often are you just trying to get it right? Because that difference alone changes everything. And here's where it becomes even more interesting, because once you begin to understand how presence, certainty, recognition, and emotional imprint work together, you start noticing something most people never see. Attraction doesn't grow in noise. It grows in contrast. The contrast between what she expects and what she experiences with you. Because think about this carefully. Most conversations follow the same pattern. Safe questions, predictable reactions, polite energy. Nothing wrong with that. Except one thing. It creates no tension, no shift, no reason for the brain to pause. And without that pause, nothing sticks. Now here's the shift. The moment your presence becomes grounded, your words naturally slow down. You stop reacting instantly. You allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it. And silence, when held with certainty, becomes powerful. Because silence with discomfort feels awkward. But silence with certainty feels intentional. And that intention creates a subtle pressure, not negative pressure, but emotional gravity. It pulls attention toward you. Now, notice this pattern. There's a moment in every interaction, a very small window, where things can either deepen or fade. Most men miss it. Why? Because they're too focused on continuing the conversation instead of elevating it. They keep talking when what's needed is a shift in direction. Let's break that moment down. You're talking. There's flow. Maybe a bit of laughter. Energy is neutral, comfortable, but flat. This is where most interactions plateau. Now watch the difference. Instead of asking another question, instead of keeping things at the same level, you slightly shift the frame. You pause, look directly, and say something simple. There's something different about you. Then you stop. No over-explaining. No rushing to justify it. That pause right after is where the magic happens. Because now her mind starts searching. What does he mean? What did he notice? And just like that, you've activated recognition. But here's the deeper layer most people never realize. The brain values what it has to work for. When you explain everything, there's nothing left to process. But when you leave space, the mind fills it. And whatever the mind fills in feels more real. That's how an emotional imprint begins forming. Not from what you say, but from what she feels while trying to understand it. Now let's go deeper into something even more powerful. Emotional contrast. If every interaction feels the same, your brain categorizes it as background noise. But the moment something feels slightly different, it moves to the foreground. This is basic cognitive psychology. The brain is wired to notice change. So when your presence is calm, in a world of over-eagerness, you stand out. When your certainty is quiet, in a world of loud insecurity, you stand out. When your recognition is specific, in a world of generic compliments, you stand out. And when all of this combines, it creates a rare experience. Now here's something subtle, but extremely important. Not everything needs a response. Most men feel the need to reply to everything, to keep momentum going, to avoid silence. But the strongest communicators know when to hold back, because holding back, when done with presence, creates space, and space creates anticipation. Let's take a real scenario. She says something playful. Most men respond immediately, maybe even overdo it. But a man with certainty doesn't rush. He smiles, pauses, then responds simply. That pause does more than the words. Because now, she's not just reacting to what you said, she's reacting to how you carry yourself. And that's where attraction shifts from logic to feeling. Now here comes a powerful realization. You don't build attraction by adding more. You build it by removing what's unnecessary. Over-talking removes tension. Over-explaining removes mystery. Over-trying removes authenticity. But when you strip all of that away, what's left is presence. Clear, grounded, unforced. And that's what people feel. Another layer most overlook. Emotional pacing. If everything is intense all the time, it becomes exhausting. If everything is neutral all the time, it becomes boring. But when there's variation, light, then slightly deeper, playful, then grounded, simple, then meaningful, you create rhythm. And rhythm is what keeps attention. It's what keeps her engaged, without even knowing why. Now connect this back to the core. When you express certainty without pressure, you create direction. When you offer recognition without overdoing it, you create depth. When your presence remains steady, you create stability. And when all of that lands at the right moment, you create an emotional imprint. And here's the part that changes everything. People don't chase what is available all the time. They become curious about what feels slightly out of reach, yet real, not distant, not cold, just self-contained. That balance is rare, and rarity creates value. So the next time you're in a conversation, don't focus on saying more. Focus on this. Are you present or performing? Are you certain or seeking approval? Are you recognizing or just reacting? Because the answers to these questions are felt immediately. And once someone feels that difference, you're no longer just part of the interaction. You become the moment. That quietly stays with them long after it ends. You feel like you understand women, but this will challenge everything you think you know. In a few seconds, a video will appear on your screen. Why successful women keep choosing the wrong men and don't know why. Watch it carefully, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And if you want more insights that give you the edge, like the video and subscribe.